Sheridan was cruising slowly down the length of the shopping mall when he saw the little kid push out through the main doors under the lighted sign which read Cousin Town. It was a boy child, perhaps a big 3 and surely no more than 5. On his face was an expression to which Sheridan had become exquisitely attuned. He was trying not to cry, but soon would. Sheridan paused for a moment, feeling the familiar soft wave of self-disgust, though every time he took a child, that feeling grew a little less urgent. The first time he hadn't slept for a week. He kept thinking about that big greasy Turk who called himself Mr. Wizard, kept wondering what he did with the children. "They go on a boat ride, Mr. Sheridan," the Turk told him. "Only it came out Daegu on a bot rod Mester Shodan." The Turk smiled. "And if you know what's good for you, you won't ask any more about it," that smile said, and it said it loud and clear without an accent. Sheridan hadn't asked any more, but that didn't mean he hadn't kept wondering, especially afterward, tossing and turning, wishing he had the whole thing to do over again so he could turn it around, so he could walk away from temptation. The second time had been almost as bad, the third time a little less, and by the fourth time he had almost stopped wondering about what might be at the end of it for the little kids. Sheridan pulled his van into one of the handicap parking spaces right in front of the mall. He had one of the special license plates the state gave to Crips. That plate was worth its weight in gold, because it kept any mall security cop from getting suspicious, and those spaces were so convenient and almost always empty. He got out and walked toward the kid, who was looking around with increasing panic. Yes, Sheridan thought, he was 5 all right, maybe even 6, just very frail. In the harsh fluorescent glare thrown through the glass doors, the boy looked parchment white, not just scared but perhaps physically ill. Sheridan reckoned it was just big fear, however. Sheridan usually recognized that look when he saw it, because he'd seen a lot of big fear in his own mirror over the last year and a half or so. The kid looked up hopefully at the people passing around him, people going into the mall eager to buy, coming out laden with packages. The kid, dressed in tough-skin jeans and a Pittsburgh Penguins t-shirt, looked for help, looked for somebody to look at him and see something was wrong, looked for someone to ask the right question. "You get separated from your dad, son?" "Here I am," Sheridan thought, approaching. "I'll be your friend." He had almost reached the kid when he saw a mall rent-a-cop ambling slowly toward the doors. He was reaching in his pocket, probably for a pack of cigarettes. He would come out, see the boy, and there would go Sheridan's sure thing. Shit, he thought. But at least he wouldn't be seen talking to the kid when the cop came out. That would have been worse. Sheridan drew back a little and made a business of feeling in his own pockets, as if to make sure he still had his keys. His glance flicked from the boy to the security cop and back to the boy. The boy had started to cry. Not all out bawling, not yet, but great big tears that looked pinkish in the reflected glow of the red Cousin Town sign as they tracked down his smooth cheeks. The girl in the information booth flagged down the cop and said something to him. She was pretty dark-haired, about 25. As the cop leaned on his elbows, smiling at her, Sheridan thought they looked like the cigarette ads you saw on the backs of magazines. They were making chit-chat what you're doing after work. You want to go and get a drink at that new place, and blah blah blah. Now she was also batting her eyes at him. How cute. Sheridan abruptly decided to take the chance. The kid's chest was hitching, and as soon as he started to bawl out loud, someone would notice him. Sheridan didn't like moving in with a cop less than 60 feet away, but if he didn't cover his markers at Mr. Reggie's within the next 24 hours, he thought a couple of very large, angry men would pay him a visit. He walked up to the kid. He bent over the little boy, hands on his legs just above the knees, and the boy turned his pale, scared face up to Sheridan's. His eyes were as green as emeralds, their color accentuated by the light-reflecting tears that washed them. "You get separated from your dad, son?" Sheridan asked. "My Popsy," the kid said, wiping his eyes. "I can't find my pee-pee, Popsy." Sheridan put a comforting arm around the boy's shoulders and drew him a little to the right, in the direction of the van. Then he looked back inside. The rent-a-cop had his face right down next to the information girl's now. At this point, there could be a stick-up going on at the bank, and the cop wouldn't notice a thing. This was starting to look like a cinch. "I want my Popsy," the boy wept. "Sure you do, of course you do," Sheridan said. "And we're going to find him, don't you worry." He drew him a little more to the right. The boy looked up at him, suddenly hopeful. Can you, mister?" "Sure," Sheridan said, and grinned. "Finding lost Popses. Well, you might say it's kind of a specialty of mine." "It is." The kid actually smiled a little. "It sure is," Sheridan said. "What was your Popsy wearing, son?" "He was wearing his suit," the boy said. "He almost always wears his suit. I only saw him once in jeans." "I bet it was a black suit," Sheridan said. The boy's eyes lit up. "You saw him? Where?" He started eagerly back toward the doors, tears forgotten, and Sheridan had to restrain himself from grabbing the pale-faced little brat right then and there. That type of thing was no good. Couldn't cause a scene. Couldn't do anything people would remember later. Had to get him in the van. The van had sun filter glass everywhere except in the windshield. He touched the boy on the arm. "I didn't see him inside, son. I saw him right over there." He pointed across the huge parking lot where the double yellow arches of McDonald's stood. "Why would Popsy go over there?" the boy asked, as if Sheridan had gone utterly mad. "I don't know," Sheridan said. His mind was working fast. Popsy, not Dad or Daddy, but Popsy. The kid had corrected him on it. Maybe Popsy meant Granddad, Sheridan decided, but I'm pretty sure that was him. Older guy in a black suit, white hair, green tie. Popsy had his blue tie on, the boy said. "He knows I like it the best." "Yeah, it could have been blue," Sheridan said. "Under these lights, who can tell? Come on, hop in the van, I'll run you over there to him." "Are you sure it was Popsy? Because I don't know why he'd go to a place where they—" Sheridan shrugged. "Look, kid, if you're sure that wasn't him, maybe you better look for him on your own." And he started away, heading back toward the van. The kid wasn't biting. He thought about going back, trying again, but it had already gone on too long. You kept observable contact to a minimum, or you were asking for 20 years in Hamilton Bay. He'd better go on to another mall. "Wait, mister." It was the kid with panic in his voice. There was the light thud of running sneakers. "Wait up. I told him I was thirsty. He must have thought he had to go way over there to get me a drink." "Wait." Sheridan turned around, smiling. "I wasn't really going to leave you anyway, son." He led the boy to the van. He opened the door and smiled at the kid, who looked up at him doubtfully, his green eyes swimming in that pallid little face. "Step into my parlor, little buddy," Sheridan said, and produced a grin which looked almost entirely natural. It was really sort of creepy how good he'd gotten at this. The kid did, and although he didn't know it, he belonged to Briggs Sheridan the minute the passenger door swung shut. There was only one problem in his life. It wasn't broads and it wasn't booze. Sheridan's problem, his fatal flaw you might even say, was cards. Any kind of cards, as long as it was the kind of game where wagers were allowed. He had lost jobs, credit cards, the home his mother had left him. He had never, at least so far, been in jail, but the first time he got in trouble with Mr. Reggie, he'd thought jail would be a rest cure by comparison. He had gone a little crazy that night. It was better, he had found, when you lost right away. When you lost right away, you got discouraged, went home. When you won a little bit at first, you chased. Sheridan had chased that night and had ended up owing $17,000. He could hardly believe it. He kept telling himself in the car on the way home that he owed Mr. Reggie not 700, not 7,000, but 17,000. Every time he tried to think about it, he giggled and turned up the volume on the radio. But he wasn't giggling the next night when the two gorillas, the ones who would make sure his arms bent in all sorts of new and interesting ways if he didn't pay up, brought him into Mr. Reggie's office. "I'll pay," Sheridan began babbling. "I'll pay, listen, it's no problem, couple of days, a week at the most." "You bore me, Sheridan," Mr. Reggie said. "If I give you a week, don't you think I know what you'll do? You'll tap a friend for a couple of $100 if you've got a friend left to tap. If you can't find a friend, you'll hit a liquor store. If you've got the guts, I doubt if you do, but anything is possible." Mr. Reggie leaned forward, propped his chin on his hands, and smiled. He smelled of Ted Lapidus cologne. "And if you do come up with $200, what will you do with it?" "Give it to you," Sheridan had babbled. By then he was very close to tears. I'll give it to you, right away. No, you won't, Mr. Reggie said. You'll take it to the track and try to make it grow. What you'll give me is a bunch of shitty excuses. You're in over your head this time, my friend. Way over your head. Sheridan could hold back the tears no longer. He began to blubber. These guys could put you in the hospital for a long time, Mr. Reggie said. You would have a tube in each arm and another one coming out of your nose. Sheridan began to blubber louder. I'll give you this much, Mr. Reggie said, and pushed a folded sheet of paper across his desk to Sheridan. You might get along with this guy. He calls himself Mr. Wizard. Now get out of here. I'm going to have you back in here in a week, though, and I'll have your markers on this desk, or I'm going to have my friends tune up on you. The Turk's real name was written on the folded sheet of paper. Sheridan went to see him and heard about the kids and the Botrads. Mr. Wizard also named a figure, which was a fairish bit larger than the markers Mr. Reggie was holding. That was when Sheridan started cruising the malls. He pulled out of the Cousintown Mall's main parking lot, then drove across the road and into the McDonald's in lane. The kid was sitting all the way forward on the passenger seat, hands on his knees, eyes agonizingly alert. Sheridan drove toward the building, swung wide to avoid the drive-through lane, and kept on going. Why are you going around the back? The kid asked. You have to go around to the other doors, Sheridan said. Keep your shirt on, kid. I think I saw him in there. Sublime relief washed over the kid's face, and for a moment Sheridan felt sorry for him. Hell, he wasn't a monster. But his markers had gotten a little deeper each time, and Mr. Reggie had no compunctions at all about letting him hang himself. It wasn't 17,000 this time. This time it was 35 grand. He stopped in the back by the trash compactor. Nobody was parked back here. Good. There was an elasticized pouch on the side of the door for maps and things. Sheridan reached into it with his left hand and brought out a pair of blued steel handcuffs. The loop jaws were open. Why are we stopping here, mister? The kid asked. The fear was back in his voice, but the quality of it had changed. He had suddenly realized that maybe getting separated from good old Popsy in the busy mall wasn't the worst thing that could happen to him, after all. We're not really, Sheridan said easily. He had learned the second time he'd done this that you didn't want to underestimate even a 6-year-old. The second kid had kicked him in the balls and had damn near gotten away. I just remembered I forgot to put my glasses on when I started driving. They're in that glasses case on the floor there. They slid over to your side. Hand them to me, would you? The kid bent over to get the glasses case, which was empty. Sheridan leaned over and snapped one of the cuffs on the kid's reaching hand. And then the trouble started. Hadn't he just been thinking it was a bad mistake to underestimate even a 6-year-old? The brat fought like a Timberwolf pup, twisting with a powerful muscularity Sheridan would not have credited had he not been experiencing it. He bucked and fought and lunged for the door, panting and uttering weird bird-like cries. He got the handle. The door swung open. Sheridan got the kid by the collar of his Penguins t-shirt and hauled him back in. He tried to clamp the other cuff on the special strut beside the passenger seat and missed. The kid bit his hand twice, bringing blood. God, his teeth were like razors. The pain went deep and sent a steely ache all the way up his arm. He punched the kid in the mouth. The kid fell back into the seat, dazed, Sheridan's blood on his lips and chin, and dripping onto the ribbed neck of the t-shirt. Sheridan locked the other cuff onto the strut, and then fell back into his own seat, sucking the back of his right hand. The pain was really bad. He pulled his hand away from his mouth and looked at it. 2 shallow, ragged tears, each maybe 2 inches long, ran up toward his wrist from just above the knuckles. Still, he felt no urge to pop the kid again. No. He didn't blame the kid for fighting. He would have done the same. He would have to disinfect the wound as soon as he could, though. Might even have to have a shot. Still, he couldn't help but admire the kid's guts. He dropped the transmission into drive and pulled past the drive-through window and back onto the road. He turned left. The Turk had a big house on the edge of the city. Sheridan would go there. 30 miles, maybe an hour. He passed a sign which read, "Thank you for shopping the beautiful Cousintown Mall," turned left, and let the van creep up to 40 miles an hour. He fished a handkerchief out of his back pocket, folded it over the back of his right hand, and concentrated on following his headlights to the 40 grand the Turk had promised for a boy child. "You'll be sorry," the kid said. The kid was crying again, and his tears still had that odd pinkish cast, even though they were now well away from the bright lights of the mall. Sheridan wondered for the first time if the kid might have some sort of communicable disease. He supposed it was a little late to start worrying about such things, so he put it out of his mind. "When my Popsy finds you, you'll be sorry," the kid elaborated. "Yeah," Sheridan said. He turned off State Road 28 and onto an unmarked stretch of blacktop. There was a long marshy area on the left. The kid pulled at the handcuffs and made a sobbing noise. "Quit it. Won't do you any good." Nevertheless, the kid pulled again, and this time there was a groaning, protesting sound Sheridan didn't like at all. He looked around and was amazed to see that the metal strut on the side of the seat, a strut he had welded in place himself, was twisted out of shape. "Shit," he thought. "He's got teeth like razors, and now I find out he's also strong as an ox. If this is what he's like when he's sick, God forbid I should have grabbed him on a day when he was feeling well." He pulled over onto the soft shoulder and said, "Stop it." "I won't." The kid yanked at the handcuff again, and Sheridan saw the metal strut bend a little more. Christ, how could any kid do that? "It's panic," he answered himself. "That's how he can do it." But none of the others had been able to do it, and many of them had been a lot more terrified than this kid by this stage of the game. He opened the glove compartment in the center of the dash. He brought out a hypodermic needle. The Turk had given it to him and cautioned him not to use it unless he absolutely had to. Drugs, the Turk said, could damage the merchandise. "See this?" The kid gave the hypo a glance and nodded. "You want me to use it?" The kid shook his head at once. Strong or not, he had any kid's instant terror of the needle, Sheridan was happy to see. "That's very smart. It would put out your lights." He paused. The kid stared at him, lips trembling, cheeks papery with fear. "You stop yanking the cuff, I put away the needle." "Deal." "Deal," the kid whispered. "You promise?" Yes, the kid lifted his lip, showing white teeth. One of them was spotted with Sheridan's blood. "You promise on your mother's name?" "I never had a mother." "Shit," Sheridan said, disgusted, and got the van rolling again. He moved a little faster now, and not only because he was finally off the main road. The kid was a spook. Sheridan wanted to turn him over to the Turk, get his money, and split. "My Popsy's really strong, mister." "Yeah?" Sheridan asked and thought, "I bet he is, kid. Only guy in the old folks' home who can bench press, right? He'll find me." "Uh-huh." "He can smell me." Sheridan believed it. He could smell the kid. That fear had an odor was something he had learned on his previous expeditions, but this was unreal. The kid smelled like a mixture of sweat, mud, and slowly cooking battery acid. Sheridan was becoming more and more sure that something was seriously wrong with the kid. Sheridan cracked his window. On the left, the marsh went on and on. Broken slivers of moonlight glimmered in the stagnant water. "Popsy can fly." "Yeah," Sheridan said, after a couple of bottles of night train. "I bet he flies like an eagle." "Popsy. Enough of the Popsy shit, kid, okay?" The kid shut up. 4 miles farther on, the marsh on the left broadened into a wide empty pond. Sheridan glanced toward the pond, a flat silver sheet in the moonlight, and then the moonlight was gone, blotted out. Overhead, there was a flapping sound like big sheets on a clothesline. "Popsy," the kid cried. "Shut up." It was only a bird, but suddenly he was spooked, very spooked. He looked at the kid. The kid's lip was drawn back from his teeth again. His teeth were very white, very big. No, not big. Big wasn't the right word. Long was the right word. Especially the 2 at the top at each side. What did you call them? The canines. Stop his mind suddenly started to fly as if he were on speed. "I told him I was thirsty. Why would Popsy go to a place where He'll find me. He can smell me. Popsy can fly." Something landed on the roof of the van with a heavy, clumsy thump. "Popsy!" the kid screamed again, and suddenly Sheridan could not see the road anymore. A huge membranous wing covered the windshield from side to side. "Popsy can fly." Sheridan screamed and jumped on the brake, hoping to tumble the thing off the roof. There was that groaning, protesting sound of metal under stress from his right again, this time followed by a short, bitter snap. A moment later, the kid's fingers were clawing into his face, pulling open his cheek. "He stole me, Popsy!" the kid was screeching at the roof of the van in that bird-like voice. He stole me, the bad man stole me." Sheridan groped for the hypo and found it. Then a hand, more like a talon than a real hand, smashed through the side window and ripped the hypo from Sheridan's grasp, along with 2 of his fingers. A moment later, Popsy peeled the entire driver's side door out of its frame, the hinges now bright twists of meaningless metal. Sheridan saw a billowing cape, black on the outside, lined with red silk on the inside, and the creature's tie was blue all right, just as the boy had said. Popsy yanked Sheridan out of the car, talons sinking through his jacket and shirt and deep into the meat of his shoulders. Popsy's green eyes suddenly turned as red as blood roses. "We came to the mall because my grandson wanted some Ninja Turtle figures," Popsy whispered. "The ones they show on TV. You should have left him alone." Sheridan was shaken like a rag doll. He shrieked. He heard Popsy asking if the kid was still thirsty, heard the kid saying yes, his throat was so dry. He saw Popsy's thumbnail for a second before it disappeared under his chin. His throat was cut with that nail before he realized what was happening, and the last things he saw were the kid, cupping his hands to catch the flow the way Sheridan had cupped his hands under the backyard faucet for a drink on a hot summer day when he was a kid, and Popsy stroking the boy's hair gently with grandfatherly love.